American way.
Conscious leadership.
It's time, come on. It's time, come on.
Conscious culture.
You can do it, yeah. You can do it. Come on.
Stakeholder orientation. Conscious capitalist. Conscious capitalist. Conscious capitalist.
With force.
Conscious capitalist. Higher purpose.
American way. American way.
Conscious leadership.
It's time, come on. It's time, come on.
Conscious culture.
You can do it. You can do it.
Stakeholder orientation. Conscious capitalist.
King.
Conscious
With force.
capitalist. Conscious capitalist.
Come on.
Conscious capitalist.
Great Friday, listening audience. Welcome to the Conscious Capitalist Show. I'm your host, King, and I'm waking up today feeling my gratitude moment. For those who know me, who listen to the show, know that we always have to begin with our gratitude moment. So what I'm grateful for this morning is my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have a sound mind. I'm also thankful for another 24 hours, another day to pursue my purpose in life. And I'm definitely grateful for all the people who are building with me within this conscious capitalism movement. And then I'm thankful for all the energy and love that we're going to be building here in Baltimore City. So, DJ Rock, how you feeling this morning?
Great morning, brother. Great morning.
What you grateful for this morning, brother?
I'm grateful as well, just like you, for being able to see another day. I'm grateful for those that surround me. I'm really, really grateful for finally being put in a position for those that surround me, seeing my vision, wanting to tie into and support my vision. And I'm also grateful for the support that I'm getting for those that I haven't really known that long and just meeting. I really appreciate for all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one of the things that always really excites me about Baltimore City since I've been here is just really finding people and discovering people who are really passionate about the city. And I've have a chance, the opportunity to really kind of navigate a lot of different networks from folks who are some of the black thought leaders that's been here, some of the baby boomers who've been in the struggle for more than 30, 40, 50 years, hear their perspective, and then also beginning to connect with some of the black millennials, the youth that's coming up, that come up with that fire in their belly, their passion, because they've been the victims of what the baby boomers did not get done. But they still have that passion as well. So it was interesting. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit. I sit on the board of an organization called the Baltimore African Home Builders Cooperative. And again, that's definitely the board full of baby boomers and people who are passionate about helping spur real estate development in Baltimore City, but more specifically, making sure that blacks get an opportunity to get involved in this development game. And one of the things we discussed, and this is what I want to kind of get your perspective on, DJ Rock, since you are Baltimorean, we discussed the fact that as you do development, one of the things that I think the black community has to come to terms with is stop making gentrification a synonym for displacement. That they're two totally different things, and gentrification has really got a bad name in the black community. I remember ever since I saw Boys in the Hood, and they mentioned gentrification back then. But I think what people don't really realize is that gentrification actually is a good thing. It's displacement that's a bad thing. Gentrification basically is the value, or the value of your neighborhood goes up in value, because real estate is a method for building wealth. It's one of the reasons why American has such a, or had before, definitely 2000, had a thriving middle class, is because of real estate, and allowed homeowners to begin to build wealth within their homes. Gentrification means that now stores and communities, businesses come into your community, property values go up. But the problem that we've had in the past is that when it happens in our communities, we don't benefit from it. Others benefit from it. Others come in and create their stores, and they benefit from the value. And we look on the outside, and then how often we get kicked out of their community, especially when it begins to start to thrive. So Roundtable's focus is not displacement, but definitely we want to help increase the value of our community so that businesses come, particularly black businesses, and then our communities can begin to thrive. So now my question for you, DJ Rock, is this. You know me, I have an issue with renters. And I say that because I think everybody should be a homeowner. Now, if you don't want to be a homeowner, that's your choice. But my point is, I don't think people should be 20 or even 10-year renters. You know, if you're going to live in a neighborhood or live in a piece of property for that long, you definitely should be getting some benefit from owning that, and you definitely should be controlling that. So what is your take on all this development activity, new people coming into your communities, and how do you feel about the whole justification issue that we're talking about?
It's heartening when you see it because the people that's coming into our community don't look like us. And they're not coming into our communities for the benefit of making it better for us or even making it better for the community. They're making it convenient for themselves, and it's making things more accessible for them. So at the end of the day, it's really not about those 7 and 8-year-old kids that's in the community. It's not about them having resources and things of that nature. It's not about the seniors that's in that community having resources. It's about them being closer to work, being closer to amenities, being able to have convenience so they can save money on travel and things like that. So it's really not going to uplift the community any. It's just going to be a situation where it's just more beneficial to them. And the fact that they're doing this is really saddening because for the amount of money that these people are paying for these houses before the redevelopment, we could put ourselves in those same positions and put people there that's going to be there for 20, 30 years, that's going to have generations of families there, that we can go ahead and make a difference where we create resources for those 6 and 7-year-old kids we were talking about, or create support systems for those elderly people that's been there already that we're not trying to push out. So I really wish that we had more people in our city, such as the Conscious Roundtable, that can put a stop to that and build generational wealth right here in the communities that's been owned by our people for years, for decades.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, to the issue and what the Roundtable's mission is definitely something I advocate is that when we have ownership of the real estate in our community, then we can control how our community thrives. You know, whether it becomes a residential housing to the businesses in our community, we have to control that and not let others control it, because we don't, others feel comfortable coming in our communities, buying a property, because the game that they play constantly, they've been doing this all across the United States, and they do this in cycles over the decades and years, ever since the 40s, and they started building residential housings pretty much mainly in the suburbs and the cities, is that what they do is they bottom out the real estate market in the black communities by draining it of resources, by pumping in, especially starting in the 70s, pumping in drugs, bringing drugs, bringing guns in, creating a very environment. And so what that happens then, the real estate values plunge, because who wants to live in a community that's fraught with violence, that's fraught with drug activity, that has folks who have had resources such as jobs, such as businesses? You lack development. And so, of course, eventually the folks who have the means are going to want to move out of their community. And then the folks who are left behind don't have the means. And now you have a disconnected community with the folks who are the thought leaders, the ones who have the position to make a difference, no longer have an interest in the community because they've moved out, and they've moved into a community that they don't even control themselves. So that's the game. So the folks who actually have the means and the resources and intellect end up moving into a community they consider to be safer, but they have no economic power. So the black community loses all the way around. And that's been a game that's been played on us constantly. And what I'm advocating is that we got to stop moving out into other communities that don't want us there in the first place. But secondly, everything we need to be doing right now should be based upon building economic power, because that's really the only solution that I see that our people can really have. We're strong, we're resilient, but we keep counting on some other community, some other group outside of us to come save us and do what we think is morally right. You know, we were talking earlier about Donald Trump, and I tell folks, and I know I get a lot of pushback from this, I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback from you when I say this, but I tell folks that Donald Trump is the best president black folks ever had. Now I pause on that for a minute to let that sink in. I know that stings, but the reason I say that is because what he shows us for the first time is that our solution is not going to come from the White House. He gives us the reality check that we have to fend for ourselves, that the government should not be our savior. Yes, the government owes us, but we got to get into a position where we demand it, not ask for it. So how you feel about that? What's your thoughts on that, DJ Rock?
You said a mouthful, brother. I just wish that we could put this on a larger platform and touch so many other people so they can understand where your passion is coming from, so they can understand the direction that you're trying to go in, and we don't allow the oppressors to keep their thumb on us and keep pushing us down, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so as we talk about, again, I call the people the doers, the action-oriented individuals in Baltimore City, the folks who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, as Freddie Lou Hamer once eloquently stated, that want to bring about a difference in our community because of the fact they have love for the community because they grew up here and because they've seen their family and they've seen their friends suffer from the not only the violence but the marginalization, the racism, and the oppression, that they decided instead of sitting back playing a victim role, they're going to put themselves in the driver's seat and take action upon that. And so the Roundtable is very proud and happy to have one of those activists, I call it folks, one of the heroes in the community that's out here doing things, not just sitting back complaining about the darkness, but he's actually lighting a candle so that he can help his people begin to create a beacon of light so people can be attracted to that, and he's out here making major differences happen. So we want to welcome to the Conscious Capitalist Show, Mr. Elijah Miles. Welcome to the Conscious Capitalist Show, brother. How you doing?
I'm fine, bro. Thanks for inviting me.
Grateful for being here. So how you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be here. From what you said thus far on the show, yeah, I'm just honored to be here around like-minded people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for our listening audience, let me read you all's Elijah's bio so that you all can understand the context of why you should listen to this young brother, because what he's been doing and what he's going to do here in Baltimore City. So Elijah Miles is a speaker and community organizer in Baltimore City. He has made 2 TEDx talks about issues relating to black people in Baltimore City. Elijah Miles is also the leader and founder of Tendaya Family. Tendaya, I'm sorry. Thank you for that.
It's all good.
Tendaya Family, whose mission is to build an organized community of black people who are committed to the economic, moral, and mental and physical development of Baltimore's black community. This development is pursued through business creation, Afrocentric education, physical health programming, and personal accountability based on an Afrocentric code of ethics. Tendaya uses group economics as a way to create stores and brings jobs to Baltimore City. Tendaya hosts weekly Black History classes to mentally empower black people. Tendaya also hosts weekly community cleanups in the city to build and connect with residents. Lastly, Elijah has just graduated spring 2019 from Morgan State University with a bachelor's degree in political science. He now does Tendaya full time. So again, brother, welcome to the show, and I want to thank you for your community activism, your spirit, your energy. And I know that when I met you, you were out in the field doing community work and doing that, what I call that freedom work. So I'm honored to be sitting across from you, brother.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you.
So let me begin by just share with us from what I laid out with your bio about Tendaya and what inspired Tendaya for you to create Tendaya.
What inspired me to create Tendaya was back, I guess 2015, 2016, when everything was jumping off in Baltimore City. And basically I was speaking at different places, speaking at schools, but I felt like I wasn't doing enough. And so I had to take a break from speaking and talking to crowds. I had to sit back and say, man, what are you going to do? What are you going to organize to get something happening in Baltimore? So I was reading about Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. I was reading about Malcolm X and his relationship with the Nation of Islam. And I was like, dang, that's dope. I was reading about the Black Panthers, and I was like, that's cool that all that stuff was happening in the past. But what am I going to do to leave my mark on the future? I'm just going to read about great men and great organizations of the past and talk about them for the next 10 years. So really, it was a place of like personal sadness, but it was also in the context of everything that was happening in Baltimore 2015, 2016. And I was like, man, I want to set up something that I think is really pursuing a solution. Because if you remember Black in 2015, 2016, everybody's proposed solution was to march down to City Hall and yell at the council people or protest and different things like that. And for me, I didn't feel like that was the solution for Black people. It's particularly in Baltimore City. So building Tendea came out of that place. Like, I didn't see the solution I didn't see the solution that I felt like was the solution in the community. And so I was like, man, if it ain't there, I'm gonna build it. So
Absolutely. And where did the name Tendea come from?
So Tendea is Kiswahili slang for hustle.
Okay.
And hustle is our founding principles: honor, unity, sacrifice, trust, love, effort. We're a Pan-African organization, and we definitely wanted to mix an African context in our name, but also have it be slang, so it has the street context, the hood context, the Black context.
That's what's up.
Baltimore context in it too. So
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, so let's talk a little bit about you and get a understanding about your background, because I'm always interested in the origin stories of, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
why people got into or why you are where you are right now. What led you to this path that you're on? So are you originally from Baltimore City?
yes, sir. Born and raised all my life.
What part of Baltimore are you from?
I grew up on Glover and Monument, so it's down the hill. I don't know the technical name for it, but
Okay.
Johns Hopkins, East Baltimore.
Okay, so over there by the Oliver, East Oliver area a little bit near
That's
that.
a little bit off, but like just off of Monument Street, so you know Northeast Market, Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, all of that.
Hey, King,
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you a secret, man, because I know that you're imported to our city. How you always can find out if it's a Baltimore native is how they pronounce Baltimore. If they say Baltimore, they definitely from Baltimore, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I keep that in mind. Now, so what are your thoughts about growing up in Baltimore City?
Growing up in Baltimore, I didn't know that I was growing up in a poor neighborhood until people at school or white teachers told me. But so when I was just only in the Baltimore context in my neighborhood around people that live just like me, in the same economic position as me, I didn't see nothing wrong with Baltimore. But as I started getting older and meeting different people and going different places, I was like, dang, I grew up kind of rough. And so growing up in Baltimore, of course it was people, you know, selling drugs. Of course it was people, not a lot of people, young men or young girls with fathers. Of course it was a lot of death. But I also, this is why the Freddie Gray context is so important, I also did see a lot of police brutality because there's a lot of people that don't know their rights. And it's a lot of people that's having their rights abused because they may be doing an illegal activity. So I done seen people that sell drugs getting beat over the head with walkie-talkies for no reason, and grandmas in the neighborhood kind of like do what you do to him because he's selling drugs anyway. So growing up in Baltimore was kind of odd, seeing dope lines, but what I always knew was that Baltimore was ripe for change. As I was growing up, at first I didn't believe it, but by the time I'm leaving middle school, I'm like, Baltimore is ripe for change, that we don't have to live like this, because by that time I'm already learning about what we were in the past. And so when you have no historical context of where we have been, then you think that Baltimore is this way, it's always been this way, it's always going to be this way. But once I start going to school and meeting teachers that knew the history and start telling me the history, I start thinking, man, we can change, we can turn this around. And so my origin is a little mix between growing up and being a fish in water and not being aware of the water, and then getting a little bit older and knowing that, man, Baltimore not only can change, but I want to be a part of that change.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, now one of the reasons I would say I moved to Baltimore City, because I'm originally from St. Louis.
Okay.
And I've been in D.C. since '88. But to me, Baltimore City is a sister city to St. Louis, right?
Mm-hmm.
The culture, the mores are very similar, which is why I came to Baltimore City. I didn't really like D.C. much. D.C. to me is a very unique place. I've never been around black people, the kind of black people that D.C. has. Never met those, still to this day. You know what I mean? Because it's not really like an East Coast city. You know, D.C. has its own uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
It has its own little bouginess to it, you know.
Yeah.
And unlike other cities I've been in, D.C. has blacks that got money in neighborhoods that are predominantly black and wealthy. But they still suffer from, their schools still suffer from the same issues that I saw in St. Louis. You know, coming from St. Louis, you move into a community like, for example, in Prince George's County, and I'm driving through an area for the first time, area called, Woodmore, and people tell me these are all black homes. They big, huge estates. And I'm like, wow, the whole neighborhood? Like, yeah,
Right.
all this is black. And I'm seeing black people for the first time because, you know, you are from Baltimore, so you are used to this. St. Louis is not really a black city. It has black people, but it's not a black city.
I
So,
think black when I think St. Louis, though.
huh?
I think black for some reason when I think St. Louis, but
Yeah, I mean, it has black pockets, but it's
Yeah.
not, you know,
that is deep.
its power base is not black. Like, we not run politically by black people. Definitely don't have a lot enough black businesses. Now, in our black neighborhoods, St. Louis is similar to Baltimore, where we have black businesses in them, but we don't have any economic power, you know.
That's deep.
And what was interesting though was that I saw black people for the first time everywhere. I mean, black people in cars next to me, black people at the gas stations, black people when I go in the restaurants, the hostess, the waiter,
Baltimore.
everybody's black. So that to me was really a mind blowing coming from St. Louis, because that wasn't the case where I was from, right? So now saying that, and then seeing how black folks in Prince George's County, from the outset, when you first see it, it's like Oz. Like, wow, this is utopia. This is where I want to be at, right? Because now I'm in the area where black people are thriving, but once you actually live there for a while, you realize, just like the Wizard of Oz, there's this guy behind a curtain, and what you see really ain't real.
Right.
And what I saw was that I was in one meeting one time, and I'm going to lead us to the question. I was in a real estate meeting, and we were talking about getting minority loans in Prince George's County. And everybody was talking about how we got to do all this minority things. And I was like, wow, you know, they really just don't get it. How can you be the majority in the county and still operating from a minority perspective, right? And I got that from Dr. Claude Anderson. And I'm seeing the mentality, and I'm like, this is why black people are in the position they're in. Even when we have a majority population, we still function as a minority population, right? And you look, contrast that with the Cubans in Florida.
Yeah.
Now, Cubans in Florida make up a minority of the population, but they act like a majority. They have aggressive mentality politically, economically. They make sure their voice is heard. You would think they're much bigger. Their population is much bigger than it really is. And so I said that to, when I came to Baltimore, I didn't see the power that Prince George County blacks had from a wealth context, but what I saw was black folks who were more community oriented and had more love and more pride for the community, which is why I moved to Baltimore City. So I say all that to say, when you grew up in Baltimore City, did you feel that from the community, this love, this pride, was that instilled in you coming up as a youth?
Most definitely. Maybe a little too much, I would say. So when I grew up, when I was growing up, the fact that my identity, before I had met other people and was taught in a different way, my identity was East Baltimore. So my identity being East Baltimore, down the hill, it gave me viewing myself that way. It wasn't about black people or black people that live in Baltimore, black people anywhere. It was about my neighborhood, my community. And if you wasn't from my neighborhood, then to me, you was the opposition, you was the enemy. And I had to protect myself from you. So it took me a while for my consciousness to grow and be like, yo, me being from down the hill is important, but it's not as important for us than us being black people and needing to be together and unify and working for a common purpose. So I would say definitely when I was growing up, that pride was instilled with me, to be proud of my community. My mother, I do community cleanups now, but my mother, I can remember my mother every other day cleaning our whole block, like sweeping our whole block. I can remember people coming out there and helping. I can remember people going giveaways. I can remember me being in trouble in the neighborhood, like some boys messing with me and people going to tell my mother. Or I remember I got hit by a car and all my neighbors ran to and banging on my mother's door to help. So I did have this feel of community love and a community presence, and I did have pride in my neighborhood. But I still wouldn't say that the black identity piece was there. Because if the black identity piece was there, we would be building up our community. But we wasn't necessarily. We was just about like, this our neighborhood. We not gonna let nobody do anything to us. But we didn't have the mentality of like building black and building up ourselves. So that's what I think was missing. It's still missing today.
Absolutely. I mean, when you take a community, you know, Dr. Amos Wilson talks about this, that the black community is similar to a laboratory where scientists have put us as rats in a controlled environment that they created.
That's right.
And then we have to function in an environment like you look at, imagine a maze that a scientist creates for rats. And then the rats are, you know, allowed to only go certain ways. You can only go this way that the scientist creates for you. And then he gives you incentives and punishment for not doing what he wants you to do, right? And so the black community is very similar to that, because anytime you take a community, strip it of resources, strip it of any kind of hope, strip the best talent out of it, because you make the talent believe that they can't thrive there. That's then you flood in drugs and guns, and you sit back and say, like Gumbo, I'm going to watch it happen.
Right.
And our people have only been allowed to make money off our people. And that's the mentality I see so much in our community, not just in Baltimore, any black community, anywhere around the world, as a matter of fact, is that we've been taught the only thing that you have for us is you make money off our community, not with our community, right? So I make that point because I see the potential that Baltimore can actually be the community that can turn that around and then be that example for the rest of the world.
Most definitely.
And to me, the uprising kind of showed that. Yeah. Because the history of Baltimore City, being that it was really the first city that had the largest population of free blacks, you figure that this is a city that had the first billionaire come out of the city. You know, this city had arguably the most impactful black man ever for the United States in Thurgood Marshall. I mean, you can make the argument between him and King. Yeah. But had he not done what he done, King wouldn't have had the legal precedence to do what he's did. That's the policies, initiatives. So I say that's what I see in Baltimore City, right? That is what attracts me. The history, the brilliance. When I drove around the city and I saw black murals on the wall, I'm like, I'm in a black city, and this feels good. Now again, I see the poverty, I see the blighted communities, I see that. But for me, I'm an optimist. I see the potential of what it could be as well. Yeah. And I want to ask you now, what do you see as you drive around your community? What's your vision that you see as you drive through these streets now and interact in Baltimore City?
For my vision, like future vision, what I see is black people owning our community. I see us black people owning, whether it be the real estate, whether it be the stores, because most of the stores that's in our communities, these like black communities, it's not a lot of stores in our communities that are owned by black people. It's a lot of Asians in our community, it's a lot of Arabs in our community that's owning, hiring their kids, hiring their people, and our kids gotta sell drugs to make it and feed their families. So what I see is for us owning our stores, owning our whole community, owning the education that's in our community, and being able to teach our kids who they are as black men, as women. When I look and see what I want Baltimore to look like, and that's kind of like what I see. I could see somebody coming out early morning and black guys sweeping his storefront, and the kids coming ready for work because they work for him and they live in that community. That's the type of vision I see. But in order for that vision to take place, I think it goes back to what you was talking about when it comes to that minority view. We have to have ourselves as the center of our reality. We have to view ourselves as the main characters in our story and not the side characters. Because in the educational system or in media and all that type of thing, we've been educated to think that white people or Asians or these other people groups or Jews are the main characters of the story and we're the side characters. And so even when in the Baltimore City, a black city, you can have a big community meeting with all black people, and you can tell by people's responses that white people are still the center of our reality. And I think in order for us to create this black reality, we have to get white people out of the center of our reality, because then we won't build black. We won't build black businesses because I can always work for white people. We won't build black businesses because I can always go to Towson University. So I think we have to think and see ourselves as the center of our reality and ground ourselves in an identity that's really black, because there's some people that's black and there's some people that's really black. And what I mean by that is that being black means that I'm viewing my purpose, my values, my principles from the perspective that because I'm black, I have to build up black. I'm called to build up black. It's not an option. That I have to get black people to a better place. But it's a lot of black people that's like, I just gotta support my family. I just gotta be great in my own right. And we have to let people know that that's not good enough. That our ancestors wasn't just building for themselves and their families when they was on them plantations or when we was going through segregation. They was building for us as a people. And being black is in Baltimore is being a part of saying that I'm born in Baltimore, I'm black, I'm here, that I'm called to build up Baltimore City's black community, and through my efforts, I hope that the Baltimore City black community be to a better place. That's our purpose. And so I have a vision, and Tendea is acting out a vision, but is a mindset thing first that stems out to the economics, to the education, to the social, because somebody was talking to me the other day when he was talking about reparations, and he said, Elijah, man, if they give us reparations tomorrow, we gonna give it back. And I was like, I can't debate too hard about that. If they give us reparations in the form of money, we gonna give it back. I can't debate too hard about that. And he was like, because it's a mindset thing. And so I do agree that it's a mindset thing, but how do you change the mindsets of black people at a collective level? And I think that's through education, knowing who Claude Anderson is and reading his books, knowing who Amos Wilson is, knowing who Naim Akbar is, knowing who these people are, and studying their works and having that mindset shift. And I'm gonna end on this, and that's why we do every Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. at Morgan State. That's why we do the Black History Book Club, so that people can start reading Amos Wilson and reading about the Black Panthers and reading about these things, to have a mindset shift, because our mindset right now is working to the detriment of ourselves and our community.
Absolutely. That's powerful that you do those book clubs, because our history is what really changed my life. Like, I was a wayward youth in St. Louis coming up, and even though I wasn't, into selling drugs and all that, but, our environment forces you in some criminal behavior, right? Your neighborhood, your cousins, everybody's going to be informed and going to be involved in some form of criminal activity. You know what I'm saying? So you can't really escape it for long, or your friends are going to be involved, even you're not directly involved. Right. So, and the crazy thing about it, I'm the son of a police officer. Really? Yeah, my father was a police officer. He had a twin brother who was a police officer. I had two other uncles that were police officers, so I grew up in that kind of environment, right? But then when I was a youth, like between from the time I was old enough to think to the time I was 12, I was a police officer's son. But my father was still active in an area in St. Louis called Pagedale, which is a little small municipality. Like, Baltimore has a lot of neighborhoods. St. Louis has a lot of municipalities. And so municipalities, predominantly black, my father was very active in that. And he was like chief of police in that area and all that, but he was connected throughout St. Louis. So my point of sharing that is, I didn't graduate from high school. And it wasn't until I read Malcolm X's autobiography. No, actually, no, what happened was I was wearing this red, black, and green necklace that had an ankh on it. Okay. And I remember I went to work one day, and the sister asked me, elderly sister, she said, so what does the red, black, and green mean? And I couldn't answer her.
Oh, you didn't know?
I didn't know.
Dang.
I was wearing it for the fashion statement. Yeah. She checked me. She's like, listen, young brother, you should never wear something that you don't know anything about.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, just pulled me to the side, and
That's
that
right.
was impactful because I still remember to this day. And from there, I said, I'll never let myself be in that position ever
Right.
again to wear something and not culturally
No,
not be able to define what it is. So then I'd be reading Malcolm X's autobiography. And when I read his autobiography, for the first time, it clicked in my life that I had a purpose beyond just existing. Because I had never seen that or had that thought any part of my life. And anybody said, you actually have a purpose in this world. Now, you hear go to school for education,
Right.
but no one in my job, I mean, I didn't want to be a police officer, so I didn't want to follow my father's footsteps. My mom worked for the government, didn't want to work for the government. And so the only people I saw that had anything going on that I wanted to aspire to be was pimps. You know, and I'm like, you know, you ain't got to go to school to be a pimp, right? Not that school, at least.
Yeah.
So, but reading his autobiography put me on a path where I would say it shifted my consciousness to the point where I began to really change how I thought about education because I saw how I changed how I thought about me. Right. And Malcolm X became the first hero that I could really connect with. Somebody who had a story of coming up rough, going to prison, and then having a life-changing experience. And that just led me to reading everything else, right? But that set me on that path where my history became my definition of my identity of who I was.
Right.
And that's the reason, to your point, our people suffer because we have no identity.
Yeah.
We don't even know who we are,
Right.
right? And then you look at that, the terms we called ourselves through the years, right? We let somebody else name us first.
Yeah.
And then we went from Negro, and they said, well, Negro means black in Spanish. Even though I never heard nobody in Spanish ever say Negro.
Right.
You know, I'm going to get some Negro chocolates, whatever.
Yeah.
I never heard nobody ever say it, but that's where the people say Negro came from. So I say all that to say is, to your point exactly, that to me, black is not about the color of the skin. It's about the conscious level you are, right? And I just want to make this point real quick because this is a book I'm working on because I think it's called the 5 Black Archetypes.
Okay.
And I based it on Carl Jung, who was a psychiatrist that talked about
Archetypes.
the different archetypes that people have. And this is based on how we respond to the white oppression that's upon us, right? So basically, what I'm saying, the black community has 6 archetypes. And it's important to understand these archetypes because how we communicate with each other. So the first archetype is nigga, right? When I say nigga, now, to be clear, I don't look at nigga as being exclusively to black people. To me, nigga is a set of negative characteristics about anybody who's selfish, that's only about themselves. And a friend of mine summed it up this way. He said, nigga is someone who steals your joy. Like, you know, the person, you can have a shiny car and he'd come over and say, yeah, but you got a dent over here. You know, he just always finds some reason to steal your joy or have their own agenda. Like Donald Trump's a nigga. When people say, you know, you want to see how a nigga be in the White House, that's what we see right now. Somebody that lies, somebody that manipulates, somebody has his own agenda. It's all about himself. Then the next level we have is Negro. Now, Negroes are typically the baby boomers, the folks who put the hard work in and got us to be where we are, but because how they grew up in such a racist system where they saw white people brutalizing us, not letting us go to lunch counters, lynching us in the streets. They had to argue to say, you know, I'm a man. So they grew up in that kind of environment, and that kind of had a certain psychological impact on who they are. So it's like they're always going to view white people in a certain fear and reverence because of how they was raised, right? Then we have the Afro-Americans, right? And the Afro-Americans, who I believe are the ones who are more Afrocentric, that everything about them is Africa. They down African names, they wear African clothing, everything's about an African type of movement. Now, again, I'm not judging anybody. I'm saying these are different characteristics that I see. Next, we have what I call African Americans. Now, African Americans are the ones that I feel that were created as a result of the civil rights movements. Those are the Barack Obamas, the folks that when you get educated and you don the European individualistic thinking, that is about me. I got to rule my family that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
I got to only concern myself about myself. And that's the individualistic type of thinking, right? Where you only care about who you are and you want to make money. And to be honest, white people feel more comfortable around African Americans.
Yeah.
They don't like black people, which is the next one. So now you got black folks. Now, black folks are about freedom. Black folks are about unity. Black folks are about uplifting the black race and understanding what that really is about.
Yeah.
However, black folks also understand that all of us can be any of those archetypes at any given time.
Yeah.
It just depends on which one you predominantly operate under. And then the sixth archetype is the coon. And that's a black person that would do whatever it can to make money.
Yeah.
You know, the Amarosas, the Ray Lewises now that we saw
Yeah.
with Ray Lewis, right?
Oh, boy.
Those folks who white people use as an example to bring in to say, well, I'm going to bring you in and you go ahead and talk about your community for your own betterment.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say these 6 different archetypes, because I've been in the freedom struggle for years, is that you can't talk about freedom to an African American. They won't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you can tell somebody the difference between a black man and African American or a black woman and African American is the fact that they African American would never write a check to support a black business. They'll always find a reason not to do it.
Mm.
Where blacks understand that it's a part of our survival that we have to do
Right.
that, right? And so you can't have freedom conversations with anyone else. You can't build with niggas, right? You sit around and say, listen, let's get together, let's clean our communities, let's start supporting, and then first thing a nigga gonna do is tell you all the reasons why you can't do it. Well, we can't do it because of this, and we shouldn't be out here with this. So now that I laid out that context, my question for you, because you out there in the community, you out there building with folks, how do you feel about working and understanding, viewing, how do you feel about the definition of these different archetypes? And then your experience of working with a different community, what has been your experience as it relates to coming up against these different archetypes in the work that you're doing with Zendaya?
When it comes to the work that I do, one, I think the archetypes, I think your book is going to be a really good book. And I like that you said that we could be different archetypes at different moments in our life, because I strongly agree with that. But when it comes to the community, dealing with people in the community, I see every archetype that you're talking about. And so, but I think, I guess you saying true black people, I think what our organization is geared towards is bringing out and attracting true black people, because it's some true black people that's reading Amos Wilson, that's reading Claude Anderson, but they in their room and they by themselves and they studying and they think they the only one and they getting depressed. And so those true black people could be like apples. If you like leave them out too long, they become rotten. And so our organization tries to attract those black people to come out and be a part of a change, because if you leave them alone by themselves too long, they'll just start being critical and they'll start using their energy, their talents, their skills to work against black people. And they'll just start being overcritical and being like, niggas ain't nothing, y'all ain't gonna never do nothing, we ain't gonna never get nowhere, and this is why. So they start using their intellectual ability to start chopping us up. So you want to bring those people out and get them a part of the work. And so we try to do that. We want to bring all types up, but we want to bring them out in different ways. You also want to bring the people that don't believe nothing will change, because in you making a change, you have the potential to make them a believer. Because for them, it's like, we can't do nothing without white people. You can't organize black people. Black people don't want to be organized. You can't build black businesses and hire black people. That can't happen. We don't got no money. You keep those around, because one, they test the true black people, but they also are made a believer through the process of seeing you work. And so one thing I learned from Malcolm, even with dealing with all these archetypes, is that you have to have a strong love for the people, and you have to be real cautious about how you judge the people, because you have to remember how you was when you didn't know what you know now.
Right.
And so for all these people, I've never been in a coon position. I've never been in but it's like, we've been in some of these other archetypes. So I was a person that I was East Baltimore. And so when someone like talking that black stuff, my eyes would glaze over, like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But as I started learning, I'm like, I see myself changing and see myself being more committed each and every day to the black community than I was yesterday. So for us is like, those archetypes are definitely true, but like you said, you can be them at different moments, and they're not stationary things. You can move to different positions. You can grow to different positions. Now, everybody's not going to change, but the way we do it is we don't know who is going to change, but we know everybody has the potential to change.
Right.
So we treat everybody as if they're future Malcolm X. So even if you're a drug dealer and you acting like a nigga right now, we treat you like you Malcolm X. We treat this woman like she ought to be Wells no matter where she's at in life, because we know potentially you could be that. Now, do we know if you're going to be that? But no, if we don't treat you that way, we run the risk of you never being that. So we treat you as if everyone that we encounter is the next savior of our people, is the next leader of our people. And I think when you carry it that way, you attract more people, but you also build up more people and help them to grow and develop themselves.
You know, it's gentleman to your point by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who said that you treat people as if they were as where they should be, and you help them become what they're capable of being, right? And I actually do that, right?
Yeah.
I believe that one of my gifts that I was blessed with is that I have the ability to see the potential in people. And it gets frustrating because people don't see the potential themselves.
That's right.
Right? So then I have to keep that in mind, that I can't, since you say judge folks, I got to try to be patient and understanding. And what I really wanted to stress to folks is that with those 6 archetypes, it's not about judging, because like I said, a black conscious person understands that sometimes you have to be African American either to be successful in corporate America. You got to put that shirt and tie on. You got to be able to make sure you talk in a certain vernacular that you won't talk on the streets. Because, again, white people are uncomfortable around black people. That's the thing. When they see a black person that has this black conscience, they don't feel comfortable about that. And for them, they feel fear because they think that you're going to come at them with violence. Even though black folks have never done anything violent to white people. And it's not even about being anti-white. It's about loving your people so much and being pro-black. But for them, that means it's a synonym being anti-white until they get a chance to really be around black people and they learn that. Like, I build with white people, and they see that. For me, I'm a black man that doesn't play the victim role. I'm not looking for you to save me, right? We can build together, but you have to understand it's a black-led organization. You're not going to come down and tell me how we're going to run things. You're not going to tell me how we're going to impact my community. You can come in and bring your resources, bring your tools, and bring your time, but not your leadership, right? And that, to me, is where we as a people have to be clear on, because until we get to that point where, like, right now we're in a room where everybody in the room that we're in is black. And different parts of business. Whether it's DJ Rock with WMEG and his radio he's producing. We got the brother here from who's producing the camera, is doing a video for our podcast. That's from what organization you with, brother?
Grill Works.
Grill Works.
Time I heard of that.
You know what I'm saying? Doing a video production here. You know, brother here at 8 o'clock, you from being Tendea. You know what I'm saying? I'm representing Conscious Capitalism, a Conscious Roundtable, I should say, but to be more specific. All black businesses, but not always talking about any kind of hatred toward any other race. Right. And so that's where we have to get to the point where we can have honest conversations with white communities, with the Asian communities, and say, we're going to be pro-black, but it ain't about being anti-you. But you're not going to come in our communities and live off black dollars and not support our community. Right, we don't have to shut you down. Like I remember Public Enemy had a song called "Shut 'Em Down." When I shut 'em down, and that's what I believe we have to be that way. Because Koreans wouldn't let us come in their communities, open a black store, and take our kids to pay our kids college education through their dollars. They just not gonna allow it. And it's not about even being racist. It's just a fact that you gotta look out for your own, right? So now I say that because I'm looking at you and you have a shirt on. I've seen you several different shirts. The shirt you says "I'm a real" and had nigga scratched out and has man above nigga. So say I'm a real man, not nigga. So you showing me that you don't even associate with that mentality, right? So talk about the T-shirt that you're wearing and some of the other shirts that I've seen you wear as well.
This is our Real Man shirt. So we have a clothing brand, Tendea clothing brand. And it's a pro-black clothing brand. We just all push messages that we believe would benefit the black community. But this one in particular was actually one of our first designs, because when we talk about identity and how we identify ourselves, people are like, man, if we think we niggas, that's all right, you know what I mean? That's cool. And I disagree, because how we self-identify is really important to how we view ourselves and how we carry ourselves and what we'll eventually do. So we made this design because we wanted to redefine black manhood in particular. Because when you say nigga, a lot of people think black people, and so we wanted to say to our community, let's redefine what it means to be a black man. And so Tendea's definition of what it means to be a black man is one that provides, protects, and support not only his family, not only himself, but his community. So when Malcolm X is attempting to build businesses or attempting to build the nation, he's using the Nation of Islam as a vehicle to build up the black community. And building up the black community is his obligation as a black man. And so we wanted to push this shirt to spark conversation, and it does spark a lot of conversation with people, so that we can have a conversation about black manhood as it relates to us, particularly in Baltimore City. Because young men that's out there, that's shooting, that's killing, that's robbing, that's selling drugs, they may be doing it because they impoverished, but it's also in some aspect of their identity too, that allows them to go out there and do those things. And so we wanted to have a conversation that is it real manhood that for the sake of me getting $1, for the sake of me supporting my family, that I'm willing to go out there and harm other black people? Is that real manhood? Is that our definition? Is that acceptable? And so what Tendea says is that's whack. That's not the definition of real black manhood. Real black manhood is that before I go out there and hurt my community to get $1, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the community before I dishonor and hurt my community. So that's the type of message we try to promote with this shirt. But every shirt that we have, every piece of clothing we have, is to push a message. So we have shirts that say Build Black. We got a shirt that say the woman's version of this, which is way more controversial. We got shirts that say black brands over big brands. It's just to get black people thinking in a different type of way, pushing a different mentality. And it's definitely to the youth, to get black youth thinking about these types of things and challenging these notions, because right now they're the ones that's like susceptible to like real niggerness. Like, I'm trying to be a real nigga, so that means if you bump into me, I gotta defend my ego and kill you right on the spot. But how does that benefit the black community? Because if we're black men and that don't benefit the black community, then maybe it's not real black manhood. So those are the types of things we're trying to push through our shirts. And the way we push them is we push them through the shirts, but it's really to spark a conversation, because it's through dialogue and relationship building that mindsets are changed. So
absolutely. And you understand that communication comes from everywhere. There's nonverbal communication, communication with the clothing that we wear, you know what I'm saying? And you have centered in on that, and you're utilizing that to really get our people talking. Because at the very least, the shirt is going to spark something in your mind, whether someone says something to you or not.
Right.
It's definitely going to spark something in their mind. It's going to give them something to think about, right?
It might even offend you, and that's cool too.
Exactly. It was another brother that when we did the march through McCullough Homes about 2 weeks ago, and he had two youth, and I took a picture of them because I saw the shirt they had on, and it blew my mind. And they said, "I deserve to live."
Yeah, that's Wesley and them. Yeah,
right.
Now Leader Project. Shout out to them.
And it blew my mind because for them, and I've shared that with folks. That's why I want to take the picture, because the picture, I said I have to show this to people, because everyone in the black community knows that our young black men are pretty much endangered species.
Right.
That back when I was coming up, they would talk about the fact that you lived to be 21, that was a blessing. Yeah. Now it's like you live to be 18, so it's actually getting less and less as far as the life expectancy of young black men, right? And to see a youth say, "I deserve to live" on a shirt, it's sad, but it's also profound in the context that we are, as a people, that's why, you heard me say this several times, DJ Rock, and I tell folks this, we're at war. Right. And we've been at war ever since we've been in this country. That's right. Right. And the reason I say that, not to try to just throw out some nice statement, but when you're at war, you understand that your behaviors have to be different than they are normal. Yeah. Right. When you're at war, we can't allow our egos for us not to build. Right. Right. We got to put our egos to the side, and because we're at warlike conditions, we got to get past the ego to say, what's the higher purpose that's built around that? Yeah. Right. And now with that being said, what do you feel as though one of the, I would say, most challenging aspects that you have with doing the mission and vision of Tendea?
I would say one of the most challenging aspects is the ego. It's definitely the ego. So it's a couple ways that shows up. So one way it shows up is that it's hard recruiting people, because recruiting people, and I think Marcus Garvey even talked about it. Amos Wilson definitely talks about it. But it's hard recruiting people because it's, even if they black youth, we live in a social media age now where it's like, I'm not willing to follow somebody that's black. I'm one of the youngest people in my organization. So it's not only am I willing not to follow somebody that's black, I'm not willing to follow somebody that's my age, because I think, even though I've done no study, even though I've put no work in the community, I think I'm on the same level as this guy. So like, if you come in late and you try to join the organization, I say, bro, you can't come in late. We doing serious work here. It's like, it's not the fact that I said you late. It's because you know I'm right about you being late. It's the fact that, who are you, nigga, to tell me I can't come late?
Right.
And so the ego shows up there, because if you understand what we here for, I'm not doing this because it's personal. I'm not correcting you because it's personal. I'm correcting it because the organization has a standard. We have to uphold that, so it'd be something of quality. But also, I want you to be better, and you being better helps our community be better. So these things are serious. So the ego shows up when it comes to recruiting people, because they won't want to follow somebody. They don't want to be, not just when it comes to follow, because follow has a negative connotation. They don't want to be in a structure. And even when you come to, like, you talk about war in the military, it's structure, it's chain of command. And black people, we've rebelled on our jobs. We rebelled in school. We rebelled in the household. So you haven't been conditioned to know how to be in an organized structure and not buck order. You haven't, so if your manager say, hey, don't come in late, you're like, you always tripping. Now, what does it, now that same person coming into an organization, you've acted that way towards everything in your life that's been like that. So when you come into the organization, when I say something, you think manager, you think teacher. And so you conditioned to say, man, he always tripping. It's little, we doing little things. And so when it comes to recruitment, ego shows up. Also, when it comes to collaboration, ego shows up, because I think that different organizations can work together, and we should work together. But a lot of times, it's a lot of organizations that are doing great work for the people, but are intimidated by other people doing different work or doing in the same field. And so these silent competitions start happening. And it's not really overt, but you can feel it in the energy. You can feel it in how someone's talking. You can feel it in what they say. You feel how they treating you. And so those types of things are also irritating, because we are at war with external people attempting to help our community survive this time period. And is other black people that's doing the same work, and they see you as a competitor. And that becomes an issue. Because I value and admire everybody that does this work, especially if they do it well. But sometimes those people will look at me or look at us and be like, man, and they whack and they trying to compete with us, which is like disheartening. So I would say, man, ego, definitely ego. Because I can imagine that, like, whether it be Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, all these people, when we look at them, we just imagine that everybody was just rocking with them, that they just had all the love. And it's
Right.
like, nah, after they died, after they passed away, they transitioned, they got all this love and people respect them. But when they were around, man, we gave them a hard time. And so me doing this work, I'm learning that like how hard it is to deal with our people, and how they'll put you through it. So I would say, man, it's the ego. It's the ego that need to be gone.
You know, it's a thing I've heard about ego, and I agree with this definition. It's the ego stands for edging God out, right?
Edging God out.
You know, because that way you dissociate yourself from God and make it about you.
Yeah.
Right? And so ego is definitely one of the issues that we face in our communities. And we're shifting into our 9 o'clock hour. So At 9 o'clock hour, we're going to open the calls up for our listening audience. They want to call in. The call-in number is 443-267-6558. Again, that's 443-267-6558. And you can call in and join us.